So congratulations to Ireland. They do it again, back-to-back Six Nations titles. They beat Scotland, as we probably thought they would, but this team once again have their hands on that trophy. So congratulations to Ireland. Congratulations to Andy Farrell and his team. But from a Scotland perspective, where do they go after a pretty disappointing Six Nations? And also, I have a question for the Ireland fans as well, but loads to get into in the video, as there always is. So welcome back to the channel. Comment down below, what did you make of the game? But more broadly, I think in these videos, as we reach the end of the Six Nations, comment on where your team is now that the Six Nations is over, looking ahead to the rest of the year as well. There is always interesting questions, I think, to answer at the end of a championship like this. So the comment section is where you can do that. Like the video as well and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. But as I say, congratulations to Ireland, champions, back-to-back Six Nations title, the first time they've done that since 2015. But generally speaking, it's not something that happens a huge amount. It's not something that Ireland have done a huge amount over the history of this competition in whatever iteration it was. So I know it's not the Grand Slam, but I think it is a moment that Ireland and their fans, and I know they will, should appreciate it. A moment for this team who have received a lot of plaudits for the style of rugby they play, for some of the results and the notable moments they've had. And I know this isn't the Grand Slam of last year. After losing to England, they didn't get that Grand Slam this season, but I still think you've got to appreciate it. Winning back-to-back championships is not easy. As for this game, it wasn't exactly the most convincing, was it? It's certainly far from the best performance we've seen from this sort of Ireland side. But they held in there, they did enough, and ultimately they got the job done. And even though on the scoreboard for a lot of it, it was tight and it was close, personally I felt that Ireland were dominating in terms of more possession, more territory. They looked like the team for most of the game that were more likely to score a try. So not the most convincing performance, particularly with some of the rugby that they produced in the earlier parts of this championship. But they got themselves over the line, and that is what the best teams do. I said I had a question for the Ireland fans though, and I do have a question for you off the back of that. How concerned are you, if at all, just on these last two performances? Now, let me be absolutely clear. Andy Farrell and this team have more than enough credit in the bank. I'm not overly questioning where they are going or what they're doing. They're a brilliant team. They've got a brilliant coaching setup, and Ireland fans are rightly incredibly proud of this team and will enjoy this result, and they should be applauded for it. But I just wonder whether once again today we saw signs, as we did at Twickenham a week ago, that this wasn't an Ireland team that were quite as slick, as quite as on it, that were able to quite reach the levels that we've previously seen from them. And look, they've won the title. They only just lost away to England at Twickenham. They were able to beat Scotland at home. There's no need for alarm bells. I'm not saying there is, but I just wonder, looking at the summer that Ireland have ahead of them, what a series that is going to be against the Springboks. I cannot wait for it. Whether Ireland fans might look at it and say, fantastic, what another great achievement for this team. But there are starting to be signs in some areas of the game that they just need to sharpen up again. Given the amount of ball they had and the amount of territory they had in this game, the attack not looking quite as threatening as we have seen it previously. Maybe it's just a couple of off weeks. Maybe there's no need for a massive inquiry here, but it's just a question for you. Dropping balls at times they previously wouldn't. An attack that hasn't been able to get itself on the front foot and look as dangerous as it previously has as well. So yeah, just a few more mistakes in their game, just a few small moments of not quite as much accuracy. And I suppose it's a huge reflection of how good their game has been. Just the level of accuracy they've been able to achieve, the level of detail and the way in which they've been able to execute it over the last few years means that when they have a couple of games like this, one of which they win and one of which they only lose at the final kick of the game, that all of a sudden I'm looking at it and thinking, oh, is this something we need to focus on? Ireland fans, you can let me know. As I wouldn't have too many fears there. I would absolutely 100% back Andy Farrell to be able to put that right, to be able to get this team back playing their best rugby for that tour in the summer. It's just a question for you guys. It was something I thought when watching this game and watching Ireland last week as well. But they're a great team. I think they will continue to go on and be one of the best teams in the world and do great things. And who knows, if they win that series away to the Springboks, then that's another pretty big statement under their belt. But that is for later down the year. For the time being, what a great victory for Ireland. Let's get on to Scotland. I mean, disappointing Six Nations for Scotland, that's without question. Just the 2 victories over Wales and over England. But further frustration, I think, in this game, because it's another game with this Scotland team where they shoot themselves in the foot. Even though I know Ireland, for a lot of the game, had more territory and possession and didn't necessarily put the points on them. But I just look at that first 15 minutes. Scotland start really brightly. Really positive start. They go 3-0 up. And then what happens? An overthrown line out 5 metres from their own try line. Dan Sheehan scoops it up, scores an easy try. And from that point on, Scotland were never able to get themselves back into the lead. But it wasn't just that moment. There were other times in the game when it was 7-6 or 10-6. Tight game, and Scotland knock it on, and Xander Fagerson, not thinking, dives on it. He was in front of the man. Rather than it being a knock on and a scrum to Ireland, it gives them a penalty. From that ensuing penalty, Ireland kick for the corner. Not actually the best kick. Duhan van der Merwe has a chance to catch the ball, stop it going out, and he just fumbles it. It goes into touch, and Ireland still get the line out. These moments in their game for Scotland, these, whether they're mental lapses of concentration, that is a criticism that has been levelled at this Scotland team throughout the Championship with the way in which they have switched off in games. Maybe that's what it was again, but just a Scotland team not able to put their foot on the throat of an opponent, to fully capitalise on the moments that they have. And it will, I think, ultimately be a Six Nations of just huge frustrations and question marks for this Scotland team. And it's not to say that Scotland have been awful in this Championship. We've seen some really, really good stuff. The first half against Wales, the 60 minutes after the opening 20 against England. Even for a lot of this game, they held out pretty resolutely. Their defence was good for a lot of it. They even showed the character late on with Hugh Jones to score that try. But overall, it just feels like it's a Scotland team that you're looking at now. And I think Scotland fans will be able to confirm whether I'm right or wrong here in being able to judge the temperature of the fan base, but it is a team that is being looked at and thinking, will they ever kick on from a team that could win 3 games in a championship, that could be there or thereabouts but never get themselves over the line, never put themselves in a serious position to compete for a title. And even though I know mathematically they could technically win the title, although it was never going to happen because they'd have to beat Ireland by such a huge margin, even though it was still a reality, it just, yeah, you feel like they're maybe not quite going to get there. And that's where we kind of are with this Scotland team. Where do they go from here? Where does Gregor Townsend go from here? Not because Gregor Townsend hasn't done a good enough job. I think he has done a brilliant job, actually, with this Scotland team. But you just wonder how much longer they'll look at it and how much longer he'll feel that he can actually take this team further into the future. I don't know. It's an interesting one for Scotland. They're not a bad team, but there just seems to be something missing. Do you put that down to simply the fine margins of Test match rugby, or do you think there is a deeper issue at play, which is probably what I'm edging towards and leaning towards off the back of this Six Nations? But final word to Ireland, congratulations to them, a great team, and a big summer coming up. Let me know what you make of it, Ireland fans, the question I posed to you earlier on in the video. And Scotland fans, let me know what you think of things as well from their point of view. Some good stuff, some really poor stuff, a huge amount of frustrating stuff for them as well. Appreciate you watching the video. Don't forget, if you just thumbs up on the video, it just spreads it to more people on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel as well. I'll see you in the next one.